Do you love to read books that sweep you away with passion and romance? Or maybe you like to write about that magic spark that draws two people together in love? Well, whether you like to read or write romance, you are in for a treat tonight here on Boss Up Goddess. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I interviewed trailblazing women who share their wisdom to help us all live bigger, better, and bolder. The woman you're about to meet is doing exactly that as a historical romance legend who's on a mission to normalize diversity in the publishing industry. The best-selling author that you're about to meet is beloved by countless readers and writers around the world. She's been leading the charge for multicultural romance for decades. As a result, she was nominated for the NAACP Image Award for Literature, and she was awarded the RWA, or Romance Writers of America, Nora Roberts Lifetime Achievement Award. She also won the Romantic Times Reviewer's Choice Award for historical romance. Since her first book, Night Song, was published in 1994, she's written more than 40 books. And you can watch the film based on her book, Deadly Sexy, now streaming on Amazon Prime. She's been featured many times in the national news, and recently the New York Times reviewed her new book, Wild Rain, and listed it as a book you should read in February. So now it's with absolute reverence and admiration that I introduce to you my dear friend, the best-selling award-winning author, Beverly Jenkins. Welcome, Beverly.
Thank you for the invite. And it's so wonderful to see you again. You know, we used to hang out 10, 15 years ago, struggling and coming up through the ranks. And I am just honored to be here with you
Thank
this.
you.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, Beverly. You are such an icon in the romance industry for your historical romance novels. And what struck me when I read the first book of yours I read was Indigo.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was just so amazed as I continued to read your books was how you show Black people during the 1800s who are thriving, not suffering, despite the slave trade that was going on at the time. Can you talk about what has inspired you to tell these stories?
The need to show Black history outside of the narrow gaze that we get from media and movies. Um, if we look at Black history through those lenses, we were slaves and that was it.
Mhm.
In 19th century, we sort of disappeared for, 100 years, according to history, their history. And then we show up again in 1965, rioting in Watts, or 67 rioting in Detroit, and there's nothing in between. So I wanted to highlight those all Black towns that are on the plains of Kansas after the great exodus of 1879, the Buffalo Soldiers, the school teachers, the colleges we built, Harriet Tubman's spy ring for the Union Army. I mean, there's so much history out there. The Black and Brown outlaws and lawmen of Indian Territory. I try and touch on all of that, and not just Black history. I call it edutainment. I think you might have been the person that came up with that word, edutainment,
Yes.
entertainment, and education.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm given great stories while I'm also teaching. The
Mm-hmm.
bibliography in the backs of the books
Mm-hmm.
for those people who may want to delve deeper into whatever history, because each book highlights a different aspect of African American history. And Indigo,
Mm-hmm.
that you referenced, it's my third book, came out in 96. It'll be 25 years old this year, still in print. And it highlights Michigan's contribution to not only abolition, but to the Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conductor on the Underground Railroad. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a ball. I absolutely love what I do. My readers are just so fabulous. They're rabid not only about the love stories, but about the history too. So
Now, you've been featured in the Wall Street Journal, People Magazine, National Public Radio, CBS Sunday Morning. And I was so excited last month. I looked up in the New York Times and it said 13 books you must read in February. Among them, your new book, Wild Rain. I was like, go Beverly. That was amazing. I was so happy for you.
yeah, because they don't generally care a lot about genre fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you see very few reviews for, I mean, romance you can probably count on one hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they do a little bit of science fiction, like they've done reviewed my favorite in Black women in science fiction, N.K. Jemisin, her Broken Earth trilogy. But they rarely do romance. And then a couple days later, they did a full review of the book, and I'm like, oh my goodness!
Yes, yes.
So very, very pleased. The new book dropped February 9th. It's getting quite a bit of play. So, like I said, I'm just trying to pay my mortgage. That's all. So I can pay a light bill, that kind of thing. But
Fascinating. Well, so right now, the number of authors of color in the romance industry are less than 10%, and it's $1 billion industry. What steps are being taken, do you know of, that are to help diversify representation for authors?
I know that publishers are supposedly, looking for more authors of color. I have to doing a keynote on Sunday for the African American Readathon, which is a almost international now. It's been an initiative that was started in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stats that I wanted to quote for them is that since 1950,
Mm-hmm.
of all of the books that have been published since 1950, only 5% have been written by authors of color.
What?
5%.
Oh
The New
my
York Times
goodness.
did an article on it back in December.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's an appalling number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just romance that has a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Publishing has a problem. So, but we're still out there, fighting and writing and trying to get these
Right.
stories of women's empowerment and the stories of hope and um, to women-centered stories
Mm-hmm.
that our readers can embrace.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Romance has come a long way since, the first books in 1970. I mean, they were, a lot of non-consensual stuff going on in those books and that back then.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's all about consent. There's no forced sex. There's no rape. It's pretty feminist now these days,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. So,
Yes.
and in this pandemic, our numbers are just rising because people want that comfort,
Mm.
that knowing that, regardless of what what branch of the romance tree they're reading, that they're going to get that HEA at the end, the happily ever after. So,
Oh,
so it's been a comfort during what somebody called this damn demic. I thought
pandemic.
it's a great word.
I hear that. Oh my goodness. Can you talk about the power of romance novels? Like, what purpose does it serve for women to curl up with that book, dive into that story, retreat into the fantasy of it all?
Yeah, I think it's number one. It's woman centered.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get a lot of that in literature. It's woman centered. She gets to be the star of the story,
Mm-hmm.
which is empowering in its own way. Um, you get that comfort that I said of knowing that, you may not be able to control what's going on out in the world and, all of the craziness with the pandemic and all of that, but that you're going to get a solid read,
Mm-hmm.
because there's great women writing great stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that read is going to be satisfying. It's going to be satisfying at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It offers women hope.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you can read about a woman who is a single mom who's struggling, um, and how she overcomes those obstacles. She may not necessarily be looking for a partner, but sometimes, she will fall in love. But it's the reading of things that parallel their lives. I think it's one of
Mm.
the things that's important too. So I love what I do. I love romance. Um,
Um,
because
how do you feel when you're Mhm.
go ahead, go ahead.
How do you feel when you're writing the stories? Do you get
Tired
swept up
most
in
of the time. Tired. you know, it's not easy.
Mhm.
Some people think it's easy, but when you're writing about emotion and you're writing about um, people's trials and tribulations, and trying to fix that with two people who may have issues, and trying to bring them together with all the emotion and all of the drama, sometimes not. But it's difficult.
Mhm.
And to do it over a course of 40 books and not write the same book,
Right, exactly. Your stories are all so different.
you try, and there are authors in all genres who just sort of phone it in, and give you the same story, give you the same story with just different names.
Uh-huh.
I don't ever want to be accused of that.
Mm.
Um, but I'm having a good time. I have a 3 book. Okay, so I write historicals, I write romantic suspense. I have 2 young adults. I have a 11 book women's fiction series set in a small town in Kansas. And in the romantic suspense, it's a 3 book arc that's set in Detroit. So I get to
Oh,
showcase my hometown too, so
yay.
that's that's part of it also. So um, I'm having a good time. I lost my mom last April.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks. And one of the, she's a big time reader. I mean, I get this reading Jane from her and from my dad, but she told me, one of the stories that she hadn't said before was that when I was little, she would buy me, I'm the oldest of 7, she would buy me cloth books,
Oh.
still in the crib, couldn't read them, of course,
Uh-huh.
would eat the pages. And she said she would tell me, eat those words, baby, eat those words, baby.
Wow.
So I
What
guess
a
all those words that I ate as a toddler on the east side of Detroit, put me here with you today. So
Oh,
it's a
beautiful.
great story. I was like, Ma, you never told me that story before.
Oh. So
Yeah.
did you grow up knowing that you would be a writer?
Mm-mm. All I ever wanted to do was work in a library.
Really? Did you work in a library then?
Yep. After college, I worked at the MSU library for probably 6 or 7 years. And then my husband was a contract negotiator for Michigan Education Association. And we moved to Big Rapids after my daughter was born in 1980,
Mm-hmm.
and moved to Big Rapids, and I couldn't wait to get back to civilization. Oh my! And so when we moved back downstate, and he had worked out of the office in Ypsilanti, I worked at the library at Park Davis.
Mm.
They had moved from Detroit to Ann Arbor. So I love books.
Mm.
Books are my thing. So that's all I
Mhm.
ever wanted to do was work in a library. So I was fine with that. I sort of stumbled into this writing
Mhm.
thing, but
Mhm.
had no idea. No, and I did a little bit of writing. I had a English teacher at Cass. I think it was my junior year, and she had us do an assignment. Write the short story or whatever. So I wrote the story, and When she turned them back in, she asked me to stay after class. And she talked to me about, how good it was. And she wanted me to, enter it into some kind of citywide writing contest or something. But,
Uh-huh.
I'm 15, 16, got no confidence. I'm like, no, I think not, but
Uh-huh.
so I guess I knew I could write from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been scribbling stories all my life, but all I ever wanted to do was library. I did not,
Wow.
and sometimes you can't be what you can't see.
Oh, let's talk about that. Wow. Okay, so
Yeah,
you're
yeah, had never seen, and there was no black books when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s. So it never crossed my mind
mm,
to be. But on that note, I got stories all day, girl. I was in Oxford, Mississippi. This was probably 3 years ago. I'd gone down to speak at their library, and they had a really neat program. It was called Lunch with Authors. And the main library there for lunch, they'd have people come in, patrons come in. They had some high school students, and they would give everybody lunch, and the author would talk on the stage. So I'm in Oxford, we're having lunch. I'm on the stage running my mouth, and talking about writing and all that. So at the end, we had a signing, and one of the high school girls came up to me, and she was in tears. And I'm like, baby, why are you crying? And Elizabeth, she said, she had always wanted to be a writer, but she didn't know that she could be because she had never seen one.
mm.
She's crying, I'm crying, everybody in line is crying, you know. And I sort of pulled her to me and hugged her and told her, okay, you see me. Now
Oh,
do whatever it is you want to do with your
oh,
life. So,
oh, it's a
so
beautiful story.
yeah, so our kids and kids everywhere too, though, but I'm focused on our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's important for them to see the variety of success
Mm-hmm.
is uh, in the African American community. Whether
Mm-hmm.
we're architects, because I have a nephew who's an architect, whether we're architects, whether we're writers, whether we are, bank presidents, whether we are neurosurgeons. I have a cousin who's a neurosurgeon from Lansing. He's a
Mm-hmm.
neurosurgeon down in Atlanta. So if our children can see those things, talk about being a boss of your life, you know.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's important.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
And we also want to see ourselves reflected on the pages of the books that we
Oh,
do
yes.
read.
Yes, for sure.
And
That's
you're
important.
doing that. You're helping people
Yeah.
experience that.
Yeah. When I did, when Indigo was published in 1996, it features a very dark-skinned Black woman. And talk about people weeping. Everywhere I went, Black women in line were crying
Mm.
because they had never seen themselves
Mm.
on the page in a love story
Mm.
that was so powerful, that is just as powerful as
Mhm.
Indigo is and was.
Mhm.
So, we matter. The page matters.
Mhm. Yes,
Always
yes,
try and keep,
yes.
always try and keep that in mind when
Yes.
I'm writing. Um, the two young adults are historicals. Those are set right outside of Detroit in Whitaker, which used to be a small Black town outside of Ipsy. And the letters that I got from those young women,
Mhm.
were very, very inspiring. Are you going to write more? Are you going to do? And I'm like, I,
Mm.
I
So
think
what was the turning point when you decided to write your first novel?
I was writing. I was writing for me.
Mhm.
The market was basically closed to African American romance writers and mass market publishing back then. Because we're talking, God, I must have started that. I've been writing on that book since the 70s.
Oh,
Okay.
Night Song,
Yeah,
right?
Night Song, yeah.
Okay.
Little Soldier, Overland educated school teacher. And I was working at MSU Library. My late husband was working for the MEA in the print shop back then. That's before he got his official job in the, the car and all of that, and the expensive job
Mhm.
and all that. And he would come home and go play tennis because he was on a tennis team when he was in high school in Grand Rapids.
Mhm.
And I would come home and either read or write on this little bitty story that I was working on, which was for me. I always loved a good love story. But there was
Mhm.
nothing in mass media that reflected us. There were no
Mhm.
love stories on TV or in the movies and all of that. So I'm writing on this story, and when I was working at Park Davis, one of my colleagues um, had just published a sweet romance.
Mhm.
Those out there who don't know what a sweet romance is, it's a romance with no love scenes. Okay, it's just a little sweet romance. So we were celebrating her, and I just sort of mentioned, the book that I was working on, and she wanted to see it, and I brought it in, and she told me I needed to get it published. And I'm like, where? Because, like I said, this is 1985. There had been maybe 5 African American romances published by then. The first one wasn't published till 1980.
What?
Yeah. Well, okay, let me back up. The very, very first history lesson comment. The very, very first African American romance was written by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper in 1892. And I was so surprised to learn that because all I knew about Frances was how awesome she was in the 19th century.
Mhm.
She was a lecturer, she was an abolitionist, she was a poet, she was a writer. She wrote this when she was 67 years old.
What? Wow.
She wrote the
Wow.
first romance. It's called, excuse me, Iola Leroy or Shadows Uplifted. That's the name of the book.
Wow.
So it went out of print in 1895, and there were really no romances published by a publisher again till 1980.
Wow.
We had little newspapers, the newspaper in Philadelphia, and I can't think of the name right now, but they had a serial with a brother who was grown up in Montana, and his mom died, and he took his inheritance, and he went to Chicago and meets the very, very fabulous Lila Durant.
Oh, okay.
Had a whole series with that, right?
Yes.
So, so back to me. So 1985, I'm like, where am I supposed to get this published?
Oh.
So I tell people, she harassed me every day, to find, and I did find an agent, and she happened to be the editor of those first 1980 romances. She had
Oh.
gotten out of publishing, and she had a small literary agency.
Mhm.
And I cannot tell you to this day how I found her. God works in universe, and God works in very, very strange ways.
Yes.
Um, so it was, and I got the call to buy the book on Mark's birthday, my husband's birthday.
Mhm.
June 3rd.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. June 3rd, 1993. And they said they wanted to buy the book. So it was
Wow.
published that next summer in 1994, along with, we call it the Summer of Black Love, because Walter Zacharias, who was the owner of Kensington Books,
Mhm.
started the first imprint
Mhm.
for African American romance,
Mhm.
Arabesque.
Mhm.
So all those ladies debuted that summer, and I debuted that summer. I
Wow.
kicked off the beginning of African American romance with major publishers. So
Wow. And you've opened the doors for so, so many more authors.
yeah, 27 years later, it's like there are a ton of Black women who are writing now, and it's just so refreshing and so awesome because
Mhm.
some of these some of these women say, Miss Bev, I read you in high school. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm old, but I used to steal my mom's books because I'm on my 4th generation of readers. You know,
Wow.
so they're like, yeah, I used to take my mom's books when I was in like I was like 12.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Love your sense of humor about all of this. And I read Shondaland interviewed you, and you said back then you were the only chip in the cookie.
Yeah. Yeah. For a long time. For a long time.
Mhm, mhm.
But now we got a few more chips. Got chocolate chip cookies now. It's a good thing.
Right. And also in that interview, you said, love is love. We all love, and the industry should reflect everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the great things about romance now is that um, it's being written by people of all identities. So it's no longer just a male female centered stories.
Mhm.
We've got male male, we've got female female,
Mhm.
we have trans.
Mm.
So it's starting to reflect the world because we all
Mhm.
love. And that's what
Mhm.
I meant by that quote.
Mhm.
Love is love, no
Mhm.
matter how you identify.
Mhm.
And everybody should see themselves on the page with love. So,
Yes, I love
yeah.
that so much. Reading your books, it's such a sensory extravaganza just to dive into the stories, and it's so lush and rich and layered and textured and just an absolute delight. So anybody who's watching who has not read one of Beverly Jenkins' novels, that you will be enriched beyond measure.
Yeah.
So, Beverly, before we leave, can you please talk about your writing process? Do you write every day? Do you have a certain ritual?
I write at night.
Uh-huh.
When I started, I had a husband who's now in heaven playing golf. I know that's what
Rest
he's
his
doing. I
soul
know
for
that's what he's doing.
that.
I had a hubby. I had 2 kids. I had a job. I had a brownie troop. I wore like 5 or 6 different hats in the community.
Mhm.
Very active in my church. So the only time I could write was at night. So now, the kids are grown and gone, and I'm in the house by myself. And I still write at night. My brain doesn't kick on till right about now. Uh,
Wow.
so, I would love to say I write every day, but I'd be lying. Um, we all write differently. Some people write every day. I don't usually start really, really getting serious about it until the deadline is like the flames of deadline are up around my eyebrows.
The flames of deadline.
And then it's like, oh dear, this book is
Uh-oh.
due in a month. Then I'm scrambling.
Uh-huh.
But for the historicals, if I have to stop in the middle to research something, I'll stop. I'd like to have um, most of the research done beforehand,
Mhm.
especially if it's a subject. I'm pretty well versed in the 19th century right now, so I don't have to do as much research now as I used to, when I first started. But I'm a pantser.
Uh-oh.
The process. Um, Romance writers say there are 2 kinds of writers: plotters, which is self-explanatory. They plot everything. There's outlines. They know exactly what they're going to do. I'm a pantser. Pantser means we write by the seat of our pants. We have no idea what we are going to write. We may have a kernel of a situation or a kernel of a character, and we spend the first month throwing stuff up against the wall to see what sticks. Um, I always um, equate it to I'm sort of walking through the desert like Moses, looking for the promised land. It's a truly organic kind of process. It's
Mhm.
character
Mhm.
driven as opposed to plot driven. I mean, the plot may come after I get the characters started. And I
Mhm.
love the excitedness that goes with it. Because like I said, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
My girlfriends who are plotters find it absolutely terrifying to write that way. You know,
Wow.
but it's sort of like walking across the Grand Canyon on a tightrope with no net. But a lot of people that I know are pantsers. Uh,
Wow.
and
But
we don't know. Go ahead.
mhm. Well, the fact that you're a best-selling author, you've won all these awards, I mean, the NAACP Image Award for Literature and all the other recognition that you've gotten, and 40 plus books, and that's your method, shows that each of us, as you said, has to follow our own
Right.
um, style.
Yeah. Don't let anybody, for all the aspiring writers out there, don't let anybody ever tell you that there's only one way to do this. Your way is the way to do this. If you want to write every day, do it. And people have lives. I mean, people tell, well, you have to write every day, but what if I have a sick child? What if, my water's turned off, or, you know, so many things that can impact your life as you get to be an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So you do what works for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember editing, sitting in a car at band practice with the kids.
Right.
They marching at night, and I'm under the lights right in the car. I'm trying to edit. So, you do what works for you. There is no set way or right way to do this. Your way
Mm-hmm.
is the right way. So,
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful, beautiful. And what are your words of encouragement for anybody who's trying to break into the romance industry right now?
um, write the book, finish the book. We spend a lot of times, oh, I'm going to write this. I'm going to stop talking, write the book, finish.
Uh-huh.
And then my other, and I say this a lot, don't let somebody else's success make you feel less,
Mm.
because often new writers will compare themselves to not only maybe their successful critique partner, but to people that they see on the New York Times list or the USA Today list. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just make you crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
this is your life. It's your journey. They're on their journey. You're on yours. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody's being successful, it's it's probably natural to feel a little jealous, but
Mm-hmm.
applaud them so that when your
Yes.
time comes, they can applaud you. So
Mm-hmm.
don't let
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's success make you feel less, because you're not.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. I'm so excited that you're going to be on the Detroit Writing Room panel Monday evening,
Yes.
talking about writing romance novels. It's part of the Black Voices series at the Detroit Writing Room, featuring romance writers, and you're one of 5 amazing authors. And we're all going to have a wonderful, robust conversation. And all of you watching, please join us. I'm going to put the link in the description box here so you can sign up and interact and meet Beverly Jenkins yourself, virtually, of course. And I'm so grateful, Beverly, that you came on to share your wisdom and tell your story and just grace us with your knowledge and inspiration tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Hopefully, I helped somebody out there to firm up their stuff and get their boss life on. And I will be here on See You Monday.
Yes, it's going to be phenomenal. I hope everybody can sign up and join, because you're going to learn so much and be inspired and walk away feeling enriched and feeling like you can tackle writing a romance novel yourself, or go out and read some that you haven't read yet.
Yeah,
So thank you again, Beverly, and I will see you Monday evening.
sounds good. Thank you so much,
You're
and thank you
welcome.
to everybody who's watching. I
Yes,
appreciate the support.
thank you. And thank you, all of you, for joining us this evening on Boss Up Goddess, where I interview trailblazing women like Beverly Jenkins, who share their wisdom to help us all live bigger, better, and bolder. Again, please do register to attend the Detroit Writing Room's Black Voices series featuring romance authors Monday evening from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Link in the description box. Please join us. It's going to be an amazing evening. Meanwhile, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this interview and any romance books that you might be writing. And also remember, boss up, goddess. You have the power. I'll see you next time.